Somewhere in Los Angeles in 1970, a social worker walked into a house and found something that would change neuroscience forever. A 13-year-old girl weighing roughly 60 pounds, unable to walk properly, unable to chew food, and unable to speak a single word. She had been kept in a locked room since she was 20 months old, strapped to a potty chair during the day and stuffed into a sleeping bag at night. For over a decade, her only human contact was her father, who would beat her if she made any sound at all. Her name was Genie, and what scientists discovered when they studied her brain would completely rewrite everything we thought we knew about human development. To understand why Genie's case was so significant, you need to understand something called the critical period hypothesis. Your brain is not the same at every age. During the first few years of life, your brain is essentially a sponge, forming neural connections at a rate that will never happen again. Language, emotion, and social bonding. All of these have critical windows where the brain is primed to learn them. If you miss that window, the brain doesn't just learn slower, it may never learn at all. When Genie was discovered, scientists saw a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, though not to help her. They told themselves that's what they were doing, but their true purpose was to answer one of the oldest questions in neuroscience. If a human being misses the critical period for language, can they ever truly learn to speak? Genie became a research subject almost immediately. Scientists, linguists, and psychologists would descend on her like she was a puzzle to be solved, rather than a child that was meant to be healed. And for a while, it seemed like she was making progress. She learned words, she could communicate basic needs, she was warm, curious, expressive, in ways nobody expected given what she had been through. But something was wrong. Normal language acquisition follows a pattern. Children will learn words, then they will combine these words, and then they will develop grammar instinctively. They don't need to be taught that sentences have structure. Their brain will figure that out automatically. Genie actually never reached that point. She could string words together, such as big teeth or Genie go, but the deeper architecture of language, the grammar, the syntax, and the instinctive understanding of how words relate to each other, that was absent. Now, brain scans revealed something even more striking. In almost every human being, language is processed into the left hemisphere of the brain. It's so consistent, it's basically a universal rule. However, Genie processed language in her right hemisphere. Her brain had essentially rewired itself to compensate, using the wrong side to do a job the right side never got trained for. It worked just enough to be functional, but not enough to ever be fluent. The critical period hadn't just closed, it had been locked away. But here's where the story gets darker. The scientists studying Genie got into a funding dispute. The research money dried up, and one by one, the people who had inserted themselves into her life as surrogate caregivers disappeared. She was moved from foster home to foster home. In one, she was severely abused again. She regressed almost completely, losing much of the language she had gained. The scientists who had been using her as research largely moved on to other projects. Genie sued her mother's estate for exploitation she suffered at the hands of the researchers, and the case was settled out of court. As of the early 2000s, she was reported living in an adult foster care facility somewhere in California. Nobody knows exactly where. She should be in her late 60s by now. The little girl, who was locked in a room so the world would never find her, ended up hidden from the world all over again. What Genie's case taught to neuroscience is both profound but deeply uncomfortable. It confirmed that critical periods are real, that the brain has windows for development that close permanently. The language isn't just learned, it requires the right environment at the right time, or something essential is lost forever. But it also revealed something about science itself, about what happens when curiosity overrides compassion, when a human point simply becomes a simple data point. Genie gave neuroscience some of its most important insights about the developing brain, and in return, science gave her very little back. The brain is extraordinary, but so is our capacity to exploit the people whose brains we study. If this made you uncomfortable, good, it should. Drop a comment with what you think about how Genie was treated by the scientific community. And if you want more cases like this, The ones that change science but nobody talks about, you're already in the right place. Thanks.